Welcome to Dig Deep, the mining podcast. In this podcast, we go deep into mining news, hot topics, and live interviews with mining professionals and leading figures in the mining industry. Introducing your host, Rob Tyson, founder and director of Mining International and Mining International Executive, a leading global mining recruitment and headhunting agency.
Hi, mining community. Welcome back to another episode of the Dig Deep, the Mining Podcast, a show that brings you the latest insights, thought leadership and stories from across the mining industry. In today's episode, we're joined by Jeff Court, who's the CEO of Tungsten West, the company that's redeveloping the Hemerdon tungsten project in Devon in the UK. Jeff has worked on many mining projects around the world, and we'll be talking about his journey, his career, and then moving into obviously leadership and why tungsten is such a critical mineral and what it takes to bring a historic mine back into production. We're also going to cover the company's new feasibility study, financing challenges, and what the EU Critical Raw Materials Act means for Hemerdon. Lots to unpack, so let's get into the conversation. Jeff, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing?
Hey, Rob, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
No, appreciate your time as well. I know you've been busy, been on the road as we were just speaking off air. So yeah, thank you for taking the time to have a chat with us. As we always start these podcasts off, I just wondered if you can just tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your career, how your career's progressed. I've known you for a few years. And so I just wondered if you can just walk us through your career sort of up to present day.
Yeah, sure. I've had over 30 years in and around in various perspectives within the mining industry. Graduated way back in '93 from University of Queensland in Australia as a mining engineer. And the path and the journey's taken me in a whole bunch of weird and wonderful places since then. I started off with Rio Tinto, early stage projects working across a large zinc mine Rio was trying to develop at the time, which didn't come to fruition, but then moved to Papua New Guinea to start up the Lihir Gold project, which was probably one of the most interesting challenges you could face as a relatively young mining engineer, taking a project from feasibility through to production, through construction phase in a dormant volcano in the Pacific Islands was quite interesting. Along the way, when I was there, not only starting the gold mine, I picked up an MBA just to supplement the mining engineering degree, and then I pretty much left the owner operator field and worked in various facets of supply into the mining industry. Firstly, with Orica, different roles across Asia, strategic marketing roles, business management roles. Orica, as you know, is one of the world's leading explosives and blasting services providing companies. Moved to Europe with them and ran the integration program between Orica and Dyno Nobel based out of Oslo for 5 years, and then started running the entire European business for Orica and the blasting services side and the ground support side as well, which was another acquisition. Left Orica, stayed in that services supply aspect to the mining industry, had stints with FL Schmidt, mineral processing equipment supplier, but also an EPCM supplier to the mining industry. A variety of projects across India, Kazakhstan, and the rest of the world. We set up a JV in China for manufacturing mining equipment. And then a little bit of a twist moving into the mining services space with Capital, or Parenti before Capital as well, largely based in Africa, but exploration drilling through to mining services contracts. We started up a very large mining services contract for Sakari in Egypt as part of Capital during my stint there. And then more recently was tapped on the shoulder to come along and lead Tungsten West and where they are at the moment, which is where I've been for the last 12 months.
Yeah, you've had a wide, as you mentioned, you've had a wide range of work in terms of working for owner operators, contractors, mineral processing, and now working obviously back into the mining industry. Have you, with your quite diverse range of experiences, has that really shaped how you see the mining industry working in so many different disciplines? And obviously you studied an MBA as well. It's funny, I asked the question in one of my last podcasts around studying an MBA, but you've also worked in all different areas of the mining industry. There's probably not too many more. Maybe on the finance side, it's probably the only area that you haven't worked in. Has that really shaped your career in terms of how now you're the CEO? You've worked in so many different parts, and now you can bring all that together and now demonstrate your experience across those wide range of experiences and companies you've worked for, now to really grab this project by the horn and run with it.
Yeah, well, it's probably one of the most interesting things about this. And at the back end of the time I spent at Capital, which was about 5 years plus or so, we also had direct investment as part of the angle and one of the divisions we had within Capital. Getting back into the mining space was something I wanted to do next, and really just to tie a bow around everything I've done and kind of bring full circle to where I started, which was mining startup projects way back in Papua New Guinea and zinc projects in Australia. So I just saw it as a fantastic opportunity to leverage every single piece of that experience, from explosive supply contracts to mining equipment to mining contracting through to EPC and feasibility studies and the whole remit, and also to do it in an interesting space as well. Tungsten's it's not gold, it's not iron ore, it's a very interesting specialty metal space that also has a lot of offtake supply requirements around it too. We have offtake contracts, and with Orica, we negotiated very large offtake contracts with major mining clients for ammonium nitrate and other raw materials. So it's a role that lets you cover everything and leverage every piece of what I've done up to today. And I always thought something like this, if the opportunity came up, would be the ideal next step for me. 12 months ago, when I got tapped on the shoulder and was explained the opportunity at Hemerdon, I thought, wow, this is exactly what I want. And on top of it all, it's in the UK as well, which, although it's not a remote part of Africa, it comes with its own challenges. As well, which are different challenges, and adds a really unique flavour to it, as opposed to trying to start a gold mine up in New Guinea or a zinc mine in northern Queensland or a gold project in West Africa. It's a very interesting facet to it that I think adds a bit more of a challenge too, and again something a little bit different. But it couldn't be anything more interesting to wrap everything together in one package. And when the opportunity came, I jumped at it. It was very timely.
Yeah, good to hear. So I wonder if you can just give us a snapshot of Tungsten West. Maybe if you know a little bit about the history as well. But if you can give us a snapshot.
Yeah, sure. I mean, we're listed in London. We're an AIM-listed company. I've been with them for 12 months. Where we're at the moment is we completed our feasibility study, as you mentioned. We published that. Certainly, the executive summary of that is available on our website. The full package of that feasibility study is now currently in our data room, and we're talking to a range of parties regarding debt and equity funding spreads for the project to go forward. We've got that $93 million funding required to start production number that we've published, US dollars. And we're just going through the process now of working out what's the right funding package to suit our requirements going forward in terms of timeliness, total cost, flexibility, speed, and the right counterparty to have as a partner for the development of the project, because we're a 40-plus year mining operation, and we want to make sure we bring in the right partners to be with us for the journey as well, both on debt but also on equity to keep us going for the journey. So in terms of the history of the project, it's been around a while, and there's quite a bit of history. I mean, the deposit itself was discovered back in 1867, so it's got quite a bit of history behind it. Operated twice during the First and Second World War as a key supplier of tungsten for the military efforts that were going on. More recently, it changed hands a little bit, and more recently, I guess, from up to 2018 for a period of 3 years, the project was operated by Wolf for a period of time. 2018, the project stopped, went into receivership, and then it was rebirthed, I guess, as Tungsten West, which was acquired in 2019. and then it's been moving forward since then, trying to find the right time and the right feasibility study and the right de-risk approach to bring the thing back online again. And that brings us really through to today, with which it culminated in the feasibility study being finished mid this year, and now advancing the funding process for it. So it's a bit of a history when you take it back to 1867. There's quite a bit of water under the bridge,
Yeah.
in many ways.
As you mentioned in the introduction, you've worked around all around the world. What actually attracted you to Tungsten West and to this obviously project in particular?
Well, I think the most interesting thing about it was it's rare you will find a project where you can take it from feasibility study to production in a very, very compressed timeline, and you can talk about some greenfield projects in the tungsten space if they're operating in remote parts of northern Canada at the moment. They're a 7-year proposition. They're drilling now. They'll do some studies. They'll do a pre-feas. They'll do a few other things as well, and they'll eventually get to a point where they can move to funding on a bankable feasibility study and then construction production. With us, we're all of that compressed in an amazingly short amount of time. And you think where we are today, feasibility study finished, funding rounds progressing at the moment, we've got about a 12-month period before we start production. So it's a very compressed construction timeline due to the fact we've got best part of $300 million previously invested in the site. We're changing it. We're adding a few things to it, but we're not rebuilding an entire mineral processing facility. The mine is well developed down to fresh ore outcrop at the moment. So the first bucket we dig is ore. It's not long leads of pre-stripping or anything. So one of the most interesting thing was it takes everything I've done in the industry and it compresses it in a really short space of time and gets us to production. That's very rare that you can find something like that. And then you put all the other aspects that I mentioned before on the table. That's also very, very interesting. But tungsten as itself is quite a specialty aspect. It adds the sales, the offtake, and the front end piece to a traditional mining operation as a total business package. I guess last but not least, it's in the UK, which I mean, I live in Cornwall and I see the history of mining all around me, and I don't want to make it the prior history of mining in the southwest of England. I want to make it the current mining production operational part of southwest England. And I see us as being a real trailblazer in that too. So it gives me an opportunity to reintroduce mining production back to the southwest, which is where I live. I don't want to see disused mining operations. I want to see productive, environmentally compliant, good operating mining projects happening in the southwest that bring jobs, employment, development to the region, because that's my home as well. So I guess put all those things together, and it's an amazing opportunity for where I was at in my career about 12 months ago.
Hemerdon was recently selected as the strategic project under the EU Critical Raw Materials Act. What does that actually mean for the project, and will it help to obviously get things up and running?
It raises profile, certainly, and we've always been on the radar for European government-backed funding, for UK-backed funding, and also US-backed funding as well. We announced not only the critical metals project designation out of the EU, but we also got a letter of interest from EXIM, the US Export-Import Bank too, because we're a key supplier of tungsten to their industrial applications and defence applications as well. It solidifies our credentials. One of the things that the EU look at before they make those awards is they do quite a lot of review of your ESG credentials as well. We know we're a solid economic project. And you could say in the past with Wolf operating, there were a number of issues with low frequency noise and some of the other aspects disturbing local neighbours in terms of the project operation. What this does is there's a really good stamp for us and a tick in the box to say an independent group like the EU have looked at us and said, you do meet our requirements, especially around the ESG side of things. Economically, you look sound and you're supplying a metal that we all know is critical, and we have high dependency on China. So raises the profile for sure. Does it come with a big chunk of the 93 million funding? No, it doesn't. But it just increases our legitimacy, I guess, in that respect. And to some extent as well, it also gives a bit of a hurry up to potential investment from the UK government and also the US government to say, hang on, we don't want to miss out. If the EU's leading this, we want our share of critical metals as well. So it increases a little bit of the, call it the peer pressure between the different governments as well. So great to have. Excellent. The ESG tick in the box is really, really important to us from the EU's perspective, but unfortunately, it hasn't quite come with the funds in the bank yet.
Yeah. And obviously, talking about funding for the project, obviously, there's an estimated $93 million required to finance, obviously, the restart of the mine. Where is that money going to come from? And do you expect government support from either the UK or EU to obviously support you in this?
Well, the 93 number is the funding number up to the point of starting production. And depending on the different debt requirements, the total funding package will be north of that. For example, a debt funder might want us to have a certain amount of cash reserve in addition to the 93. So that's the starting number. It will vary based on the final funding package. That will be a combination of debt and equity. If you round that up roughly to 100 million, just to make my maths a little easier, it'll be around about a $60-ish million debt package and a $40-ish million equity package from it as well. So we've got a variety of options we're pursuing on the debt package, and you tend to find once the debt's solidified, we know we've got a lot of interest on the equity side to pull together the 40-ish in the equity play as well. The debt piece is spread across both government-backed and private options for us at the moment. We do see that every one of the main government-backed institutions have an interest in the debt piece. Exim is a debt provider out of the US. They've expressed their letter of interest, and that has a $95 million number on it. The UK government is certainly one of the parties that's deep in our data room at the moment, and look, they see us as a very interesting opportunity for us as well. The European government also is in our data room, looking at us too from a debt and potentially an equity play as well. So our challenge at the moment is just working out what's the right building block on the debt piece, and to use that as well to support the progress on the equity slice as well. So all options are still there, and I think we were saying before off air, we've got a lot of building blocks to make that 100 up. We're just now thinking, what are the best components of building blocks that give us that best long-term funding solution with the right partner to help us develop the project. But we've got a few building blocks. We've got more than enough to make up the 100. We just need to pull them together. And the other aspect of it too, given the current market price and the situation in the tungsten market, all our off-takers are asking us, when are you going to start? How soon can you start? So speed is a theme with everything. We always ask people, what's your DD? How quickly can we get going? Because at the end of the day, that helps the market and helps our clients as well with raw materials. So all of those things are up in the mix at the moment. We'd be looking to move to a final investment decision, I would say, targeting probably early in Q1 next year with what we'd like to have as the final funding package. And we need a little bit more time on that, mostly just to make sure we've got all the right building blocks to give us the right solution, more so than looking for building blocks at the moment.
Yeah. What are some of the challenges you've probably already faced and maybe facing in the future when obviously bringing a historic mine back into operation?
Well, it's a very interesting one, because I've been through the process quite a few times with greenfield projects, and you take your core, you bring your composites together, you talk to a reputable laboratory and a mineral processing company, FLS. We were one of those companies to do a process circuit for you and provide a process guarantee. It's in one extent, it's much easier when you've done it with laboratory work with core or potentially small scale bulk samples. What we've got is we've got a process plant that operated for 3 years and put through it about 6 million tons of material. And the end result was it didn't work as well as everyone expected. that's a good free kick in that it comes with that 300 million of prior investment. But the flip side is it comes with the baggage of, hey, it didn't work, guys. So, prove to me it works. Or is this going to not work again from our perspective? So we've spent a lot of time going over those 6 million tonnes. And I look at it to think, what project could sit on a 6 million tonnes of learnings from a very, very large scale, call it pilot plant, but it's in fact not a pilot plant, it's a fully fledged operating plant, who could look at 6 million tonnes of learning and go, well, we not only have laboratory data, we've got a huge amount of actual performance data from how this plant behaved. And the things that did work, we know, and we've used those recovery factors and performance stats in the new process flow. For things that didn't work, Wolf, even in the day, had very good ideas on how to fix them and started implementing a number of those fixes. So we've incorporated that in our restart plan in the feasibility as well. So I look at it as an incredible gift that you've got 6 million tonnes of learning under your belt, as well as additional test work. So essentially, the process flow, we have added new modules to it. We put in place a brand new crushing and screening front end, a crushed ore stockpile, which wasn't in place in the previous flow sheet and gives us some buffer. We put in place ore sorters, which accept only about 30% of the primary feed. So a large part of the plant that does the gravity circuit and fines and coarse is massively underloaded in what we're doing now. And then we add a few more technical modules to it. We add inline pressure jigs, we add an ultrafine circuit, but the rest of the plant is essentially the same. We just spend the money on making sure it's working properly using those 6 million tonnes of lessons from the past. So the new build piece isn't the restart of the old. It's building the new and forgetting about what was there previously. Once you go inside the existing MPF or the process plant, that's the area where you go, right, what is it we don't know about that could not work the way we'd like it to? And the way we're working around that as a risk management plan, we're running the back end of the refinery as we speak. We have trial product that we're producing at the moment that will be shipped off to one of our off-takers. So we're restarting parts of the plant to make sure we find out if there is something we don't know that isn't working, we find out about it now, well ahead of time. And we're doing that ahead of the funding round as well. As we get more funding in, we'd like to start the fine circuit. We'd like to then charge up the coarse circuit. And then we'd like to start up the tertiary crushing circuit, which are all parts of the prior existing plant, to make sure they're all working the way we'd like them to work. And if there are any bugs, I want to find out about them well ahead of building the new front end and joining the dots, so to speak. So that's probably the biggest area, certainly for me, that we need to focus on. The new build and the greenfield will be wrapped up under an EPC contract, maximum price, and that's just building something on a fresh plot of ground and by an experienced contractor who does that work in the UK. So I see less risk in that. It's more around the making sure what's inside the process plant works properly, and we've built that into the phased restart plan. So anything that's a surprise, we want to find out about well ahead of time. So we've got a lot of lead time to fix it, and the long lead is building the new front end. So that's the way we're addressing it. It's it always comes with its challenges, but at least we've got an approach to de-risk it.
Yeah. Obviously, you recently mentioned that you've updated your feasibility study. Just wondering if you can give us a bit of an overview of the study and obviously talk about what's next for the company.
Yeah, the study was very comprehensive. We went right back to first principles with a lot of things, especially in the process plant design. And that fee study, which we published a couple of months ago now, it had a wraparound by AMC, a very reputable mining services provider in the feasibility space with studies. brought together a whole bunch of key people and qualified people across all the different aspects, from environmental to mining to updating our reserves, updating our resources as well, updating our ESG credentials too. So a huge amount of work went into that. We built up a whole bunch of costings from first principles and the updated costings for the plant and the new build based on updated quotes and a few other things. The economics as it sits, which is really the thing that it all hinges on at the end of the day, what does it generate? At even at a $500 per MTU price, we hit around a 48% IRR number, and the current pricing is hovering between 600 and 650. So it's solid. And for a 93 million investment, we've tried to manage that as well. It's not huge in the grand scheme of things. You know, some of these Canadian projects in the tungsten space are looking at well north of $500 million to get up and running. We'll probably be a contingency. Our number will be a contingency on their build plan. So, and we get that all done. And in the 93, we've still got about 12 or 13 million in contingency there. So the project hangs together incredibly well. You put a 600 number in there, like we said, I think your payback period would be the length of this podcast. But don't take my my words on that one. So it's solid. And the most important part for us now is pulling together the funding round and getting into the construction phase. And if anything, we've got the team at the moment working on ways we can get into production faster in a more phased way, which aligns with what I said before with the de-risking program of the process plant. We can fire up parts of that plant like we're doing right now to get some product coming through, and that's much needed by the off-takers, and it gives them confidence as well that we're back. We're not just a study. We're not just talking about it. We're actually shipping product, and we want to do that through the phase we called the pre-production phase in the restart timeline. We want to have tangible product coming out of that to give confidence to our shareholders, our investors, to give confidence to the local community that we're operating the plant and we're staying within our environmental requirements, and get product to our off-takers to give them confidence that we're really back. We're not just a presentation with a fee study behind it. We're an operating site. So that's the mindset change we're just going through now with the project, where we're done with studies, land the funding, get on with it, and be construction to production and do it as quickly as possible, which I think we'll be running two streams. We'll be running a construction stream and a refurb and a restart stream pretty quickly after we get the funding packages through.
Yeah. This question is probably more for people outside of our industry, but obviously tungsten itself is a critical raw material. Just wondering if you can just explain what makes it so obviously important in today's economy, and what industries are most dependent on tungsten.
Yeah, well, it's an interesting one because it's not an industry a lot of people have experience in. It is a very high density metal. And we use gravity separation. It's got almost the same density as gold in many ways. From a characteristics point of view, it's quite unique in many ways. It's got the highest melting point, highest boiling point, incredibly high density comparable to gold. It's the highest tensile strength of all metals. So you can stretch it a long way and make an incredibly thin wire out of it that's very, very strong. And of course, as a tungsten carbide, it's used in a lot of cutting tools. People who are familiar with the mining industry will know tungsten carbide drill bits. For example, as well. There's a lot of cutting tools you'll buy at your local hardware store that have tungsten carbide components in them. In terms of industry sectors, it's quite spread. I mean, a big chunk of it goes into the mining and construction industry as wear parts, drill bits, etc. In oil and gas, drill bits as well. A lot of it, and that's almost, say, a quarter of its application. The other quarter goes into the transport sector, both not only in final produced cars, but a large part of it goes into the tooling to cut and manufacture the vehicles as well. So a lot of tooling in that industry is tungsten carbide cutting bits. There's industrial applications. Fence is about 10% of its application. Armor, for example, and ballistics and weaponry uses defense in it. That's why it gets a lot of airplay because of its defense applications. It is a growth sector. Rightly or wrongly, it is. but it's 10% of the offtake. It's significant, but it's by no means the majority of the requirements. Some other areas it goes into energy applications for connectors and some of the circuitry. One interesting application for it in the renewable space is those ultra-fine wires you can make out of tungsten for cutting are used to cut silicon wafers for PVs. So solar panels coming out of China consume a huge amount of tungsten stretched into an incredibly thin wire to cut silica into wafers and get a much more high yield out of the silica wafer cuts as well out of it. That's a sector one of the Chinese off-takers was presenting 2 weeks ago at one of the conferences, was saying currently that market space consumes about 1,000 to 2,000 tonnes of tungsten in the wire space for cutting PVs. They're forecasting that to grow to 7,000 tonnes in 2 or 3 years. We're going to produce 3,000 tonnes of concentrate in that time frame. So it's one of those things where that's almost 3 times our offtake, or 4 times our offtake would go to one sector for China, and that's either China manufacturing solar panels for export, or to meet China's requirements, which is to move a lot more towards renewable energy for its own applications as well. So it goes into a huge amount of different sectors on the application side. On the supply side, you've got 85% of it comes out of China and Russia. So digging it out of the ground in a place that's not maybe in China, where they need so much for their own needs, is a really big advantage for us. And there aren't many places in the world where you get economic deposits of tungsten. And we're sitting on if not the biggest, but one of the biggest tungsten resources globally, just outside of Plymouth in the south of the UK, which is very well positioned to supply not only the UK, but Europe and the US. So you couldn't pick a better place to put a massive resource of tungsten in a nice geographic location with and where it is and the size of it. So it's got a huge amount of applications. Some things you'll find tungsten in just for everyday application. The little vibrating of your iPhone is a tungsten device in it. There's also about another little known fact for people is there's about 6 or 7 kilos of tungsten in a Formula One car as well. And a lot of that goes in at the bottom of the car for ballast. If they need to fine tune the dynamics of a car and they need to put a lot of weight in one little part, tungsten's a great way of doing that. It's an incredibly small volume, but it can add a lot of weight to different parts of the car to give it balance. And the wear plates underneath them, made out of titanium, are usually clipped on with tungsten as well. So, out of all those applications, it's in your phone, and you'll see at the Texas Grand Prix this weekend, every one of those cars running around's got about 7 kilos of tungsten in it, which you probably would have thought, why would I put something so heavy in a Formula One car? Well, it's there because of a whole bunch of good reasons. It's density, and it's cheaper than gold. I can't imagine the F1 guys putting bullion in their cars for ballast, but that's where it gets used in a whole bunch of different industries, and incredibly hard to replace given its melting point and resistance and density as well, and tensile strength.
Yeah. Mining often raises questions about obviously sustainability and environmental responsibility. Just wondering if you can just talk us through how modern mining practices, especially at obviously Hemerdon, address these concerns compared to the past.
Yeah, and I mentioned before, it certainly was one of the issues that was raised especially with the generation of low frequency noise, which was like a subwoofer vibrating noise that affected certain parts of local communities as well. That was a big aspect of what was contained in the final granting of our mineral processing facility permit from the Environment Agency mid last year. And a big part of that required us to prove to the EA through community consultation that we'd address the problem. And every one of our screens that could potentially generate LFN has to have an LFN enclosure around it, a very rigid screen that we've gone through a whole bunch of test work. We built a screen enclosure on site to see exactly how it would reduce the LFN and mitigate it completely below our targeted levels. So all of that is built in to our feasibility study, you'll see it as one of the cost components on the 93 million. It's not a small number. It's a very substantial investment, putting LFN enclosures around every one of our 13 or so screens as well. So that's a very big part of what was required, and that went through a very extensive community consultation process through the Environment Agency, talking to all the local neighbours, all the local communities, and proving to them that we're doing the right thing. And the EA set a pretty high benchmark for us to get over that, and we were rewarded with the EA permit being granted, albeit it still comes with certain operational conditions and preconditions which we need to work on, and we need to do it in a staged way to prove that every time we commission a production screen, we're still meeting the LFN requirements for us as well. In addition to that, we're a project on care and maintenance until we get the funding and we move forward. Yes, we're doing some limited EA approved pre-production work at the moment, but a huge amount of our very limited budget that we've spent to keep the project on foot up to today and beyond, a big part of that is still all our environmental compliance requirements. We spend a big part of our ongoing costs looking after the security and the environmental and the social compliance aspects of the project. So we report water quality, we monitor dust, we use dust suppression when it's windy and dry. We do all those things to make sure we're a good neighbour. Even though we have very limited funds, a big chunk of those funds has been spent on making sure we still remain compliant because we still have all those compliance requirements. And we see that as still being a major facet for us going forward. We want to be a good neighbour. We're going to be there minimum of 40 years. We are in an area where there are still pre-existing mining operations all around us. There's the China clay deposits that have been there probably for 100 odd years. So it's not new to the area. But one thing we need to make sure is we're going to be there for 50 plus years. We need to be a very good neighbour. It's never good if you're in a position where you're annoying your neighbours and you want to be there for 50 years. That's not a good place to be. We've got a number of plans on what we want to do with local community engagement, what we can do to encourage local people to look for opportunities working with Tungsten West. Because we're one of these projects where you could be here thinking your grandson or granddaughter could be an apprentice learning a trade at Hemerdon. That's the generational flow we're going to have at that project, and we can't do that unless we're good neighbours. We want to attract that local talent. We want to comply with all the things we can. And in fact, a number of things we've rolled into the feasibility study, for example, rubber lined trays on the trucks. One of the noise generators out of a mining operation is a bucket of an excavator dropping rock into a truck tray. We've made the decision to make those out of rubber liners because we know that reduces the noise. And it also lets us put more tons on a truck, which also means there's less truck movements to move the same number of tons as well. So a lot of those things we've incorporated. Where we can, we want to move away from track dozers to rubber tired dozers because they, again, reduce the noise too. So drills should be downhole hammer rigs. So where the percussion mechanism it's below the ground as well. So we've incorporated a lot into the changes, even in the processing plant where we've got inline pressure jigs. They're a lot less environmentally impactful than some of the DMS units that we've replaced with them. So we've done a lot. And a big part of that has been how do we improve this for the neighbours and the local community. So a huge amount of focus has gone into that for us, and it's certainly an area very close to my heart as well. Yeah. Because 50 years is a long time. If the people next to you don't like you, that's not a great place to be.
And it makes life easier.
Yes, it does. Very much so.
Yeah. Lastly, in concluding, what's the short to medium term outlook, say the next 6 to 12 months? And is there anything else that you want to share with our audience?
Yeah, it'll be a really interesting and dynamic time for us. We'll be closing out our funding packages. We'll be announcing what we do with our go forward plan in the construction phase. And I'd like to be thinking in 12 months' time, we'd have a chunk of our phase 1 production ramp up operating at site. So this is one of the things that's so interesting about our project. We can get a lot done in a short amount of time on this project. So for me, it's full funding package, well and truly into the construction phase, and I'd like to be thinking we'd have our stage one restart commissioning program well underway at that point. So a very exciting 12-month period for us ahead.
Yeah. Jeff, really appreciate your time. Thank you for sharing your story. Give us an update on Tungsten West and obviously the Hemerdon project, the uses of tungsten, and obviously much more on your feasibility and obviously the funding requirements. And wish you well for the next, I suppose, remaining months. And hopefully we can speak this time next year and you might be in production.
Excellent. Good on you, Rob.
Yeah.
Thanks for the time. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries. And if our audience wants to obviously reach out to you, if they have any questions and obviously follow the story, how can they go about doing that, and what social media platform channels are you on?
Yeah, we're on pretty much everything, probably more than I can even list at the moment. But LinkedIn is a good way. But on our website, we've also got an email as well that'll go straight in. I'll receive that. We're a pretty lean team, so I'll get that pretty quickly. The website and the email inquiries is the easiest way to do it. LinkedIn we always respond to, but there's a whole bunch of other social media platforms I'm sure you can find us on as well.
Yeah, no worries. And we'll include those in the show notes accompanying this for easy access. So wish you all the best for the rest of the year and going into next year. Good luck with the funding. And hopefully you can come on the podcast sometime next year and give us an update.
Look forward to it. Thanks again for your time, Rob. Really appreciate it.
No worries. Thank you for listening. Hope you enjoyed the episode. As always, appreciate your continued support. Please keep sharing these episodes far and wide, and especially listening to a UK mining operation. We don't have many UK mining operations here in the UK on the podcast, so I know our UK listeners will be listening in, but I really appreciate if those around the world can share this. Obviously, tungsten is a critical mineral that is much in needed supply and demand. So appreciate if you can share this far and wide. Thank you again for listening, and until next time, happy mining.
Thank you for listening. Remember to reach out to Rob via the show notes and be sure to subscribe and leave a review. Until next time, happy mining, helping each other to improve the mining industry.